Hello, Asaf. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Great Transition. Asaf and I are exploring where humanity is headed in our century through the lens of authentic Kabbalah. There is a horrible phenomenon that almost every day I see in my news feed, mass shootings happening, particularly here in the West. The East has plenty of problems. We've talked about some of them before. But particularly in the West right now, there is this phenomenon of mass shootings. The question is, why is this happening? What is the nature of these evil acts? And is there a spiritual solution for this grim reality that we find ourselves in right now? Asaf, you ready to take a look at this?
Yeah, it's a biggie. It's a biggie. Serious situation, but I think yeah, we can if we really delve into the root level of things, then we can maybe get a better perspective on what's actually happening now. Yeah.
Let me give you a picture of so since the beginning of the year, there's been a mass shooting is the shooting where there's more than I think four people who were shot in
Hmm.
one incident. There's been over 150 of them, something like that, or 150 of them
Wow.
since the year began. There's
That's
been about
just in
50,
the you're talking about the US, specifically the US, huh?
2021 in the United States. There's been
Mm-hmm.
about 50 in the last 30 days. So let me just tell you what's going on in April. I'll just give you a few. So April 3rd in North Carolina, 7 people were shot during a house party. April 3rd in Florida,
Oh
7 were
boy.
shot at a nightclub. April 3rd, 2 were shot in Alabama. April 4th in Texas, 4 people were wounded in a drive-by. April 4th in Alabama, a woman was killed at a park. 6 others, including a 5-year-old boy, were wounded. April 4th, 2 men were arrested for shooting at a bar that wounded 6 people. That's 2 days.
Wow.
April 5th, 2 brothers are suspected of having made a suicide pact before they shot and killed 4 family members and then shot themselves. April 5th, Baltimore, Maryland, 5 men were injured in a shooting. Uh, Chicago on April 5th, 7 people were injured in a shooting. So that's 3 days. Um, and the list
Wow.
is, I mean, I'm still scrolling. The list just keeps
Scary.
going and
Scary
going and
stuff.
going and
Yeah.
going. Yeah. So, um, yeah, this is a pretty strange phenomenon. I remember when I visited Israel, there's guns
Yeah.
everywhere. I mean, you come out of the airport and teenagers are standing there with, machine guns on their back.
Like
I went to
soldiers
the beach.
in
I
in
saw,
their army service, like young. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, right, right. Not just people on the street. I was surprised to see like teenage girls like eating ice cream with machine guns on their back in
Yeah.
shorts. Yeah, that was like a weird phenomenon. I remember when I
Mm-hmm.
saw that the first time. So guns are, certain societies have more, certain societies have less. But here in the States, when you see, after 9/11, we would see
Mm.
people with guns like in the mall or at the airport all over with machine guns, but it was like kind of fear around it. When I was in Israel
Mm.
and I saw it, I was like, okay, those guys, it's kind of like, I don't know, supposed to be there kind of thing. When you
Mm.
see people in the States carrying um, automatic weapons outside, it's in as a reaction
Mm-hmm.
to an imminent threat. Um, so there are more guns.
Yeah, I think it's
I believe.
like I think just the psychological like immediate reaction. I think like I mean when you see like the soldiers, like you said in Israel, it's like oh they carry weapons because their job is to now serve as those who protect the country. But when you see it in the US, it's like oh these people are now carrying guns because they feel they need that to protect themselves from other people in the same country. That's like a that's kind of a
Yeah,
an
right.
immediate yeah. Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of guns in America. This show today is not about guns and gun control.
Right.
That's not
Good.
really. I mean, that's something else, and we're not uh, very much into talking about politics too much, except as it's a reflection of the state of humanity. So, what I'd like to probe with you now is what is this phenomenon? Um, where is it coming from?
Yeah.
What is there a spiritual solution
Hmm.
um, to this? And I've got my own thoughts about it, but I'd like to hear where, when you hear about this, and you think about the spiritual reality that we're talking about every day.
Yeah.
How do these two things relate?
Ah, wow. Caught me. I didn't know we were gonna go straight to there, but let's do it.
Well, you can you
Um,
can you can back up and drive
yeah.
up slowly if you want.
No, no, I mean you're right. I mean that's I mean I'm sure this is what our audience is looking for. You know, how to exactly what you said. There's a reality that we discuss about how to experience it beyond the material existence, beyond the physical senses. That's what Kabbalah talks about, right? But then on the other, and that's a reality where we're all connected. We're a collective entity. Um, and then there's a reality here in this world that is, in some cases, so opposite and so like detached from anything that we're talking about in the wisdom of Kabbalah. So, how do these things uh, jive together, right? Like, how can that even be? So, I'll start on a certain direction and just tell me if that's too little or too much or too little, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
I would say this. Um, our world is there's a great Kabbalistic quote. It's a very famous Kabbalist quote that says, "This world is like a corridor. It's like a passageway where we have to undergo a certain kind of process of calibration, of correction, Kabbalists call it, and it's only in order for us to get into the living room." And the living room is where the party really happens, is like what we are, where we're
In
actually
general,
supposed
I
to be.
hate all fairy tales and stuff like that if they relate to my life.
Well,
So maybe you can actually relate.
sure,
If you're
sure.
talking about, some fantasy, okay, but if you're actually talking about my life, I have like it pushes my
Yep.
buttons when I have to digest a fairy tale in relation to my actual life.
Well, it's not a fairy tale, it's a metaphor. It's just a metaphor.
Okay. So
The
what do you mean?
the metaphor just means that everything that happens in this world is designed to push us along this corridor, to move us another step forward. Now, ultimately, we're going to have to move forward with this train of this spiritual evolution that's happening. And everything that we experience in our world as horrible suffering and pains and wars and killings and mass shootings, um, all of that stems from a certain imbalance that happens between where we are and where we are supposed to be, where we should already have been. Um, so, do,
Yeah, I
does the
can get with that. Actually, that's what I was thinking when I was thinking about the show, that we're like moving in circles and in lines. So like we're moving towards a goal, but we're like kind of like rolling towards it through like night day, all these different states, but we are going in one direction. And nature is moving the process in one direction as it always has been. And then our whole thing is just like, in how many ways can we corrupt that process on the way? Like that's basically what it seems to me. And I get um for example, um, a person who grows up in feeling loved doesn't go to shoot anyone. So there's this feeling like, of course, if somebody does something like this, there's punishment that needs to happen, and all of those things that follow. They already kind of sealed their fate. But nature is moving, and as long as we organize ourselves in a loving and caring way, then then aberration like this wouldn't happen. For sure, it wouldn't
mm,
happen as much. You can always have strange things that happen in nature that would need to be corrected. But yeah, so I understand what you're saying. We're moving in a direction
yeah,
towards a
yeah,
spiritual goal.
Yes,
And
and
humanity just comes up with as many possible ways to screw up um, that that
well,
process,
okay, let me add
that
another
line.
component into this picture. It's more complicated, right? So
Okay.
everything that we this is a difficult term now to bring up, but I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you have
throw
to
it.
actually like unlock
I'm
your heart on this
I'm
one because you're talking
yeah,
about serious things here that
yeah,
are
but I'm gonna throw the term evil on the table. Okay, we let's just for a second before we dissect it, etymologically, let's just kind of say evil actions or abhorrent behavior, okay, that we see in our world. Let's just call that for a second evil. Um,
yeah.
that everything that we see in that shape and form in our world, this is going to sound controversial a little bit, but let me complete the whole thinking here, okay? So all of those evils, they have to happen. Wait. They have to happen in our world. They have to we have to go through in this corridor on our way to the spiritual reality, on our way to rising beyond the levels of the limitations of this world, on our way to evolve beyond our uh, our material existence. We have to recognize and acknowledge and get to know how opposite the existence in this world is to our spiritual existence. Okay, this process of recognition, this process of conscious acknowledgement of where we are and what we're made of, and how opposite this broken this physical reality is from the spiritual whole eternal reality, we have to identify that difference. Now, does that mean that horrible things have to happen and people have to die, innocent people, and wars and suffering?
One
Yeah.
second.
Okay.
Why?
Why what? Why do we have to recognize the difference?
Yeah,
Because
I mean, you
because
just
there's
you
no
said
right. Because nature wants us, let's say, evolved. It is embedded in the program of nature to make us conscious spiritual beings, but it's impossible for us to develop the consciousness of spirituality without correspondingly uh, getting to know, becoming conscious of the difference between spirituality and physicality and corporeality. We have to identify
why?
how, because there's just no other way for us, a created being, a creature. We are not the program. We are not the operating program of reality. We are
We're some
created by the
protein body
program.
with some software running on us.
That's how we currently feel ourselves. But
That's how we feel now.
is that all we are? That's a different discussion altogether. But um, you know, are we just protein-based bodies? That is that what we're trying to answer
No,
right
no, I don't
now?
want to get. I'm not. No, we're not trying to answer that. You just
I'll
said
give it.
that in
I'll
order to
just
get to the spiritual.
I'll
Hold on. You said
just
in order to get.
okay.
Okay, tell
Mhm.
me. Tell me.
No, because maybe maybe we bring it up. I mean, we bring it up, and maybe it's not exactly clear. So, according to Kabbalah, from the Kabbalistic perspective, we are not our body. This is currently how we perceive ourselves. Our actual selves are a non-material entity uh, built from a spiritual substance called desire. Let's just put that aside and not make it the topic of the show, but just to make it clear.
Fine. So you're saying in order to get to the spiritual goal, we need to go through all of these evils. So my simple question was why?
Okay, we need to recognize the oppositeness between um, spirituality, the spiritual quality that guides all of reality, and The only way to recognize it is through its opposite quality. There's just no other way. Just like you cannot understand good without bad. And you can't be hungry, you can't be saturated or satiated without being thirsty or hungry. There's no darkness without light. There's no white without black, and everything, all of the colors, right, for example, are just variations and degrees of different, on the spectrum between black and white, right? So anything that we perceive has to be a result of two opposites. There is just
So
no other
then,
way for created beings to perceive anything if it's not through one thing and its opposite. That's
so
why,
on
yeah.
so on our way to the spiritual goal, according to this premise, we'll just have to see more killings, more mass shootings, and even worse.
No. Ask me why not.
Okay, so why not?
Okay. No, because I said we have to become conscious of the oppositeness. We have to acknowledge that we live in an opposite reality, in the opposite quality of nature. We live in a state of darkness, and if we recognize that, we can understand what is living in a state of light, let's say. From understanding the oppositeness between corporeality and spirituality, we can begin to perceive our spiritual existence, right? Becoming conscious of those differences can happen on a conscious level if we activate our free choice in the process. If we understand where nature is pushing us, which is to raising us beyond the limitations of this world, beyond time, space, and motion, beyond separation, towards a state of connection where we're all connected as one interconnected entity, like a body, like cells in a body that are all working for the same purpose and for the same goal, in the same system, bound by the same laws. If we understand that this is where we're going, and we begin to want to go there, we will go through all of those oppositeness and differences that we have to recognize on a conscious level, and that
So
means they won't have to.
I go through the emotion of the shooter, or the emotion of these things, without them actually having to physically manifest.
We can replace material, years of years and years of material suffering with moments of spiritual awakening. That's how it works.
Wow.
The and that's why when we see um, uh, something like mass shootings happening again and again and again, then we have to start recognizing that there is a systemic problem here. There's something we need to recognize. There's something that we need to start becoming conscious of. Now, what I spoke in the last couple of minutes was on a very Kabbalistic spiritual level, but that awareness can begin from just a social understanding, a sociological kind of perspective. We need to start understanding that, if you see this result happening again and again, you got to say, okay, there's a trend here. There's a culture that breeds these actions. There is something in the air. There is something in the music of society that breeds these events and these situations. And so we need to change something deeper. We can't just judge when something happens. You read that endless list in the beginning, which was scary, right? When something happens this frequently, you got to ask yourself, you got to be blind to not ask yourself, what is making this happen. It's not just, oh, this person is evil, that person is evil, this person is evil. Let's lock this guy up, let's lock that guy up, let's do, that is something you may have to do just to protect society, but it doesn't solve anything.
So,
So, yeah.
these are mass shootings that we spoke about, but in the city of Chicago, in March, last month, there was 233 gun-related incidents and 298 shooting victims in
Wow.
Chicago in March. Almost 300
So
shooting victims in Chicago
that's
in
one
March. So
month in one place.
in one city. Yeah.
Wow.
So clearly there's a
Mm,
political element to showing these mass shootings on TV all the time because why isn't the news just telling us what's going on in Chicago every day? I
mm,
mean, shouldn't we? There's no racial divide. It's not between different. It's a totally different. So we should kind of get away from even all the political and all of the race and any of those reasons that may be piled on top of this. It's a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon in this country. It's maybe in other places too. And I know other countries have, plenty of other phenomenon, like the Uyghurs in China. I mean, you have like a
hmm.
million people, in camps. It's like a whole other thing. But specifically
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
in a Western place. Now, something interesting. Uh, wow, the politics is just so disgusting how it corrupts all of these
Mm,
things. It really, really corrupts us from being able to understand what the root of these things are and getting stuck on some tangential detail, which
yeah.
in and of itself may be something terrible, but it just spins and spins and spins and takes on a life of its own. And it totally, you said you can go through years in moments, right? Spiritually, you can take years of physical development and go
Yeah.
through them in moments by advancing spiritually. The opposite is happening. Instead of us understanding the root of what's happening and why, we're taking these moments, which can be a way to learn about ourselves and learn about humanity, and we're just stretching them out and making the suffering more and more and more by turning them into all kind of political
Yeah.
things, these kind of
We're
things.
it's very simple. We're engaging in anything besides the one thing that we could be working on, engaging in order to prevent these things from happening. And that's
Let me tell you.
working. Yeah.
Let me tell you a little story about a boy who had a really hard childhood, and imagine how the world could have been different if this boy had a different childhood. He It wasn't all on him because of course his parents probably also had really bad childhoods, so it goes back. But he had two brothers and two sisters that died in the first 2 years of their life. This was
Oh,
more than 100 years ago. He
okay.
had another brother that died at 6. His dad was drunk and used to beat the crap out of him,
Mm,
but encouraged him to study. And he wanted to be an artist, and his dad encouraged him to go, to study science and things like that. When his dad died, he was a teenager, young teenager when his dad died. So the kid applied to art school. He wanted to be a painter. Um, he was rejected from art school. He applied again to art school. He was rejected a second time to art school.
hmm.
His mother was completely emotionally distant from him, so he had no connection to his parents. By the way, there's a whole thing with like borderline personality and all these different psychological things that develop in children when a child is shown little affection. The parents don't validate the kid's feelings. The parents don't a child doesn't ever
Yeah.
develop a sense of self. um, so then this teenager, he was living in a homeless shelter for a while. He was selling his watercolors on the streets of Vienna. This was Hitler. This was Adolf Hitler.
Mm, okay.
So you can imagine at how many stops along that story if somebody now, of course I'm not justifying this guy in any way. I'm looking at the system.
Hmm.
But you can see how a boy who is loved by his parents, a boy who's allowed to express himself, it turns. You can imagine what could have changed with, and many of the something like 90+%. I don't know. I was reading a few things about this, but the shooters, um, these mass shooters that we read, all of these mass shooters here,
Mm-hmm.
most of them grew up without dads, or
Yeah.
dads they were estranged dads.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, and again, we're not talking politics here. We're not talking divorce politics. We're
No,
not
this
talking.
is this is basically this is social psychology, and I'll tell you what, Kabbalah very much agrees with these big conclusions from I would say maybe the last 7 years of social psychology, as far as I'm familiar with, like this understanding, this growing body of knowledge that lets us see that we are products of our environment, we are products of social engineering, we are very malleable, and we are shaped by our society so much more than we realize, so much more than we see. We don't. This is the big thing about it. We are not fully aware of just how much we are influenced in every shape and form by our society. Why does Kabbalah agrees with it? Because Kabbalah talks about the root of it. Where does it come from? It comes from the fact that in our world we don't see that we're actually connected in a single body. We are like cells in a single body. And when something happens to one part of the body, it happens to the whole body. Cells are affected by the same system. We are an ecosystem. We are a superorganism. We are a network. And so this collective spiritual entity, it appears to us in this world as different people in different countries, different nations. We think we are separated from each other. But the reality is that we're all connected as one collective being. And so that's why, if you look into it, you can see all of those footprints of this collective entity in the form of these psychosocial effects, these social, everything that social psychology is finding. And it's fascinating. There's a lot of research that really shows that we statistically we don't recognize how all our choices about everything, all our preferences, our worldviews, politics, whatever, it always happens in relation to what happens in our environment, who we're connected to. It's all, yeah. So that takes us back to mass shootings and how they happen. You can see, the how much the social psychology plays a role here, how important it is. Yeah. So yeah.
Simple things before we even get to spirituality, simple things like organizing our lives, learning how to, I mean, we use the spiritual wisdom to help us understand these things, the value of these things, the why of these things. It's not because of traditional values or something like that. But to understand what it means to take care of a child, how the world could be different by taking care of a child. Sorry, I was distracted for a second. I was looking at what
Yeah,
was going on
what's
in the
going on in the
chats. I did.
chat?
There is
What
a lot of conversation going on over there.
uh
Um,
all right. I I can't really see if there was any, I didn't really notice if there was any
I couldn't
question we should
tell.
take.
Yeah, I was just scanning through. I didn't see question marks, so that's why I was reading to see if there was questions. Melissa Holden says, "What if the shooting kills your corporeal existence? How does that help?"
How does that help?
I'm not
Do you
sure
get
what
the
it means.
question? Oh, maybe she's related. She's talking about how does that help? Because we said that everything that happens in this world is part of this calibration process, development process towards spirituality. Maybe so. She's asking what happens to the people who get shot, basically. Right? Is that the question?
Okay, I'm not
Okay,
sure.
I'll answer that question if that I don't know if that's what you were asking, Melissa. But in any case, just like with anything else that can happen to a person, the we live in a natural system. It's a system of laws. Just like there's laws of electromagnetism and gravity and what have you that works between physical particles of this reality, there are laws that govern everything that happens in our life, in our thoughts, in our desires, and the circumstances that we're born into and grown into, and so on. The it the laws are all aimed at pushing us to evolve. What happens though, what happens is always a fusion of this evolutionary pressure and our free choice. Meaning, did humanity as a collective entity um, uh, make enough efforts, enough added consciousness to move forward? And to the extent that we are lagging behind, nature has to push us harder to move forward. And that results in this imbalance, results in different forms of suffering. Now, why do innocent people, maybe that's more like gets to the core of it, why do innocent people then have to die? So I would say two things about that. One, remember, we're interconnected. This is the, for better and for worse, and in this case for worse, this is the reality. Just like in your body, when you feel pain in your foot, you step on a nail or something, your whole body feels the pain. When there's a problem with one of your organs, it will gradually create a problem in your whole body. It impairs the functionality of your whole body. This is what's happening in humanity. And so it seems to us like, but he did, this guy should have been, punished. Why do others people get punished? Well, we're interconnected, we're interdependent. But here's the second thing.
Where's okay?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, where's a person safe if we're all connected and somebody
yeah. Go ahead.
where some innocent person gets shot because
the
all
only
humanity
way
is interconnected. So how can we be safe?
Only if we start caring about each other. That's the only way to be safe. There's a I'll say more on that, but there's a Chris. Are you with us? Can you pick up this quote from Bala Sulam until you find it? There's a quote I thought we might want to use, and this is a good moment for it. So exactly about that. There's a quote, but let me add until Chris finds it that they don't have the innocent people don't have to die. It doesn't have to happen, this whole thing. It happens this way because we're interconnected, but it doesn't have to happen because the recognition of evil that we need to go through, as we said earlier, it can happen on a conscious level. It doesn't have to manifest in this horrific material events in this world. If we move consciously towards where we need to be, which is wanting to care for each other, understanding where nature is pushing us towards a consciousness of our connection, then we'll go through the resistance to it, the oppositeness to it. We'll recognize our own evil in our own oppositeness in a more subtle way, in a conscious way.
What do you mean our own evil? What does that even mean?
That's a good question.
If you asked most people if they're, I don't think if you asked people, are you evil? People would say, no, I'm a good person. I take care of my kids. I pay my bills. I even, I don't know, gave out soup at the soup kitchen last year. I took all of the old clothes that we had and I gave them to poor people. So why are you calling me? What do you mean our own evil? There's a few people maybe who are evil, who are doing evil things. What do you mean?
So I would say this: the word evil is insufficient. I agree with that, and it's a loaded and problematic kind of a abstract, somewhat religious even word. But we all people are born with, are created, are designed with a program that directs us towards using all of our desires for our own self-benefit. That is true for
That's what a
any
dog
human
does.
being.
That's what a
Any
dog
human
does. And a
being.
dog is not evil. That's what a bird does. A bird is not evil. Every
Sure,
creature does that. I
sure,
don't call a
but
bird evil. I don't call an ant evil. They're born. They get up in the morning. They say, okay,
mhm.
well, I need to do this for the hive. I need to go get something to eat. I need to make a baby ant. It's not evil.
Yeah, but the human is different. The human um, has a conscious. The animals, they fulfill their desires. They have simpler desires: food, sex, shelter, procreate. All that stuff. Um, they go to fulfill their desire, and that's it. The human is different. We develop this idea, this intention to enjoy from being more than others, from having more or being more than others, and we build ourselves on the ruin of others. And now it doesn't mean that every person it manifests in a big way, but the program is latent and exists in each and every human being. And we need, as a collective species, we need to recognize that to some extent. We have to achieve a certain level of recognition, of awareness of what we are, that we are operated by this program. That the moment we achieve that sufficient level of awareness of who we are and what we are, we can then begin to this goes hand in hand with our ascent towards our spiritual existence. The Okay, here's a okay, you know what? Yeah, Chris, there's actually three parts to this quote. Let's just do all of them. Check this out. Okay, so this is Kabbalist Bala Sulam, master of the ladder, right? That's his Kabbalistic alias. Anyway, in Introduction to the Book of Zohar, he writes this: all the pains we suffer are but revelations of the nothingness and harmfulness of the intention to receive for oneself. So let's unlock that. Let's unpack that. So, and every pain that we experience in this world is part of this revelation of our intention that is opposite from the intention of the governing force of nature. We are gradually discovering what is this program called, that he calls intention to receive for oneself, that operates us. Now, sometimes it manifests in these horrible events, which are really the embodiment of that intention, right? But it doesn't have to happen that way. It can happen on a conscious level. Indeed, when all humans agree to abolish their intention to receive for themselves, and their desires will only work to bestow upon their fellow humans. Important distinction here. We don't need to cancel our desires to live and enjoy life and have fulfillment in life. The abolishment that he's talking about here is a deeper program that operates our desires. It's the purpose for which we enjoy. It's the purpose for which we receive pleasure. It's the direction in which we use our desires. When that direction is towards ourselves, then it keeps us opposite from the spiritual fulfillment, from the spiritual reality. When all humans agree to relinquish that, and their desires will only work to bestow upon their fellow humans, all worries and jeopardy in the world would cease to exist. We would all be assured of a healthy and wholesome life, as each of us would have the whole world caring for us. That's the answer for what you asked before. If we're so interdependent and interconnected, how can one be safe? That's the only way to be safe. We have to introduce a new intention in the body of humanity, a new system, a new direction for the cells for all people to work for. Last one. While each of us only has a desire to receive for oneself, which is the current state that we experience in our world, this is the source of all the worries, suffering, wars, and slaughter and mass shootings that we cannot escape. Ultimately, that's the nature of evil, if you want to put it like that. That's the technical, the mechanical nature of it. I think I went too deep, too fast. I don't know if any of that
It's
was
no, it's not. It's
was.
not too deep, too fast. The problem is, it's like you just backed up a truck and dumped out, a truckload of building materials, and you're like, okay, guys, well, we want to have a beautiful house here. All right, so like, see you later. It's like, okay, good idea. Everyone should be happy and love each other, and that would be great, and then we would have no problems.
Yeah, but I'm not saying he's not saying to us here, and I'm not saying it either that it's just going to happen. Kabbalah is not this utopian think. Okay, so the whole problem is that we're evil towards each other. We need to be good and loving towards each other, and everything will be great. No, it's a
Yeah,
complicated
that's what it sounds
process.
like.
Well, it's not what we're saying. What we're saying is this: there is a process of recognition of evil that needs to happen, and a development of our conscious desire to be something else. That's called free choice. Free, a volitional, conscious participation in our evolution. That's what nature needs from us. So the mind and heart of the human have to evolve. That's our next level of evolution. So it's not that we can just be good to each other. That's not what we're saying. We're actually saying the exact oppositeness. In this world, we're all not good towards each other. We're all more or less aware, but we are all intending for ourselves. We're all trying to fulfill our self benefit. That's what we are. But once we recognize that, number one, and want to be in a more advanced state, number two, that's where nature can then the natural program can then move us to the next stage of evolution. It's only a conscious development that needs to happen in the human, nothing else. Does that help anything?
Uh,
Not
I want
not
to know about this.
sufficiently, I feel. Yeah.
No, no, I want to know about this conscious development. What the most profound thing I heard today was that instead of these processes being long and drawn out,
Mhm.
that spiritually it can be a moment, and we can advance
Yeah.
through months, through years of material development. We can advance in a moment spiritually, because what is going on here now, they just unloaded a couple $1 trillion into the economy. The problem with giving out, there's all kind of problems giving out free money. I mean, of course, everyone needs to eat, but if you don't back it up with any kind of education or purpose or whatever, it's a problem. We still have the virus going on. We have people, why would a person shoot up uh okay, the reason why a person would by the way, most kids, the games, I don't know, most, I didn't look at the survey. I know
Mhm.
what I've seen with teenage kids, they're mostly playing shooting games.
Mhm.
Like, it's very, shooting is not such a foreign thing, but the people who are going out and shooting are depressed. The people who are going out and shooting don't feel that there is um, a future.
So
They feel
y-
hopeless.
I agree. You want to then zoom in back into like the sociology and psychology of the situation, right? So
To come on top. Now, I'm not talking about politics, but to come in and say, we need to stop the guns, or we need to, it's because one race against another, and it's a, you know, if, but the root of the problem is people are miserable. People are depressed. People
yeah,
don't have feel purpose in life.
purpose in life is a big thing. It's a big thing. It is okay. Let's take specifically the school shootings, right? Because there's all kinds of mass shootings, but the school shootings I think is is a very prominent example of what you're talking about, because in the school shootings, if you look at the trend, it's very, very clear that it's always young adults, right? You look at the
Most of the
Columbine,
shooters
ma-
are
what
20s in their 20s or
they're in
something
their
like that.
20s, right? 19, 20, 22, 20. Like it's always a young adult that that
A guy,
basically
almost all the time, a
yeah,
young
yeah,
boy.
male that snaps. But before the snapping, then you got to ask yourself what happened to their life before that. So, teenagers, just by being a teenager, they are already facing all of those insecurities, and they have a very fragile emotional experience of reality. There's tons of psychosocial stress that they have to always, peer pressure and all that. Now, so that's one part of the equation. That's just being a teenager, right? Now, add to that circumstances in life that might be more difficult for some people, than for some teenagers, than for others. Living in a broken house, whatever, domestic violence, or even just like separated parents, whatever it is, economic situation that is difficult. So add that on top, and now add on top of that all of the violence in the media, online, social media, and so on. That not even if it doesn't push people to to mimic it, which is another argument here, but it numbs it desensitizes us to committing violent acts. When people grow up, these teenagers grow up seeing violence and gore and blood and murders on TV and on the online everywhere, they become desensitized to it. So put all of those things together, and then if that teenager feels, you know what, life isn't worth living, I got no purpose anyway, then you can, when a person feels that and everything looks dark, and all of that, all of those conditions, is it really, unimaginable that they will snap? It only makes sense, that it's only natural that one will resort to the worst their culture has taught them in a situation like that. So people need
So
need
heavy.
a safe, positive, and loving environment if we are to actually solve this problem. That's on an
Our
earthly level.
our
The
that's that
Yeah,
was that was heavy, man. That was beautiful.
yeah, it's a heavy topic,
Basically,
isn't it?
that was, yeah, that last minute there, 2 minutes, that was a perfect introduction for what I'd like to do. There's a song that our friend Zamir wrote, Zamir from Hadera,
All
city in
right.
Israel,
Yeah.
which kind of comes out of basically everything you just said. So if we got a few minutes here, let's play
Let's
this
do
song.
it.
What does it mean, this American dream, this lie we believe as we strive to achieve, wasting our lives, gazed in our eyes on a piece of the pie, hoping to fly high, but maybe tonight we can go side by side tonight. We can walk side by side tonight. We can go side by side tonight, into the light, What does it mean? This Hollywood film, the stars on the screen, they long to be real, faking a smile while waiting to die, trying to hold a moment in time. But maybe tonight we can go side by side tonight. We can walk side by side tonight. We can go side by side tonight. Into the light. Side by side tonight. We can go side by side tonight. Into the light. What does it say? This American way. The price that we pay in the markets of fame, trying to heal, but fighting to kill. The answer is still blowing in the wind. But maybe tonight we can go side by side tonight. We can go side by side tonight. We can go side by side tonight. Into the light. Side by side tonight. We can go side by side tonight. Into the light. Into the light. Into the light.
Ooh, powerful, man. Yeah, that's a Zamir wrote this one. He wrote the whole thing.
Yeah, I think words on music.
Psh, we gotta shout out to him, man. Yeah, that's powerful, powerful and moving. Um, so I don't know if we should add anything after this. What do you say?
I don't know.
um, I do see a question from Francine Zabawa. She asked at some point, do you think that our essence behaves similar to how cells combine? And maybe I think there's even more questions here. Take a look at that and see if if we want to bring up some more questions. But I'll answer this one quickly. There's actually there's I think a mention of it in the Zohar too, about how the human body is actually a direct copy. It's called root and branch in Kabbalah, meaning the root level of reality is the level of causes, the level of spiritual roots, and branches means the level of consequences in the material world. So our body is a consequence of the spiritual root that is the structure of the collective soul. That's why each of us has a body with all these cells that are working together, even though they're in different systems, and it's one collective entity. So yeah, it's a replica of our spiritual structure as a collective entity, collective soul. Um, yeah, that's what I picked up. Anyway, if you do you see more questions there, or how do
I
you want
didn't
to?
see. I just looked
Yeah.
through the chats. While so music, um, yeah, music is enjoyed here. So we'll incorporate more music. But as uh, that last line, what does he say? He says, um, what does it say that this American way, the price that we pay in the markets of fame, trying to heal, but fighting to kill. The
Mhm.
answer's still blowing in the wind. It's like it is still so simple. It's like we're spending all of our effort and all of our energy to just figure out. I guess it takes all of that. You know, you said earlier that we need to reveal that evil. It's like we need to reveal at the end of the day that what we need, right? Because if you just say what we need is love, it's just cheap. It doesn't mean anything. What is love? You know, does it mean smoking pot and listening to Jimi Hendrix or something like that? Or I don't know, swimming in a waterfall? Two nice things to do with your time, but that's not, what we're talking about as far as getting
It,
in.
is it so simple? Is it just, the Beatles song, love,
So
love, love, love is all
that's
we
the thing.
need? Is it
Yes, it
really?
is. It is so simple,
It
and that's
is.
the whole point. Except in
Except,
order to actually come to the need of what it actually
yeah,
is, takes
yeah,
all of our energy. Because we don't really, because it's just, if you just say love, if you just say I love you, it'll never last, and it's not really heartfelt. It's heartfelt when I dedicate my life to you, and then I tell you that I love you, those same three words. Then it's a completely different experience. So when we dedicate our lives to making it real and we invest ourselves in doing it, then those same three words take on a whole new world.
yeah. So is all we need love? Yes. Do we know what love is? Not really. Can we be loving towards each other? Absolutely not. But if we recognize that it's all we need, and we start exploring what it actually means, what kind of upgrade it requires from us, what kind of desire do we need to build within us, what kind of consciousness do we need to live in, what kind of next stage of evolution uh, uh, we need to rise to. If that's what we were going to be working on, exploring, researching, doing that, in educational settings, in social settings. If this will be, the kind of the driving force behind our media and our communication and our science, even, then as a society, we'll begin to receive feedback from the natural system. Only the force of evolution itself, the nature itself, can raise us to our next level, can can build, install this new intention in us called love or bestowal or the quality of nature, the giving force of nature. We have to discover that force, but we have to make a step towards it. We have to activate our free choice. We have to be conscious participants in the process. It's yeah, I don't know if we managed to, how much of this we managed to communicate, but I would say that's really why, that really is the solution to all of our ailments, especially all these horrible social ailments that we see. And the moment we begin to change our direction, nature will work with us. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Okay, and we got a new treat also. A new song by Jürgen, our friend from Germany, with Tony and
All right.
Tosh and Juan and all these friends on it. So we'll play that on the way out. Thank you, everyone. The song will be up on the playlist probably by tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here. Big hug to everyone. Keep strong, be brave, love each other, and we're going to go all the way.
Yeah, thank you all the beautiful people who have joined us here. We see you all in the chat. There's been a lot of discussion. Sorry if we missed some of the questions that you wanted us to answer. Hopefully we'll do that next time, Thursday, 2 p.m. Wait. Stay tuned.
What?
Stay tuned. We might not be able to do next Thursday. I'm sorry for there might be a situation.
You shouldn't tell me that till Wednesday.
I'm sorry. This is my bad. We'll stay tuned.
When
Just
will
stay
we know?
tuned.
Okay.
Stay tuned to Kabbalah.info. You will see the next stream scheduled in advance on the channel, and it will say when the next show is. So,
thank you, Patricia, Timothy, Kevin, David, Yetzi, Sarah, Spencer, P. Marlin, everyone.
Melissa, Florbella, Mboli, Gilaya, Azriel, Ruth, CT, Lumley, Adara, who am I
Melissa,
missing
Benny,
here?
Mbole,
Harun.
Kevin,
Yeah.
Jerry, everyone. IKS. Okay.
Yurgis.
Big hug.
All right, friends.
Next
See you
time.
soon.
To the other side. Keep your heart wide open, and love will reach your soul wide open. It'll save you on your way wide open. I know it's the only way wide open, and the light will forever stay inside. Love guides the way, I know alone I fade. I need someone around to fill my soul.
And the stars they shine only in the night. If I could only care, maybe I could make it right. Keep your heart wide open, and love will reach your soul wide open. It will save you on your way wide open. I know it's the only way